Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new program titled Race Relations in Northern Ireland Past, Present, and Future. My name is Alfred Abolarin. I'm the current chairperson of the Migrant and Minority Ethnic Council, a strategic advocacy and community think tank whose vision is an inclusive and fair society where the rights and responsibilities of everyone are upheld as we seek responses and solutions to key societal issues. The MME Council is going to look at race relations in Northern Ireland in a broad sense by talking to people from a range of backgrounds about their experiences of life in Northern Ireland. We'll also be talking to experts and practitioners in the field of community work, the promotion of equality, diversity and inclusion, and also the legal and academic fields. As part of the Imagine Belfast event, we'll begin with a short film to set the scene and then go over to meet our panel for a discussion of the themes. You can submit questions through the chat function and we'll try to answer as many as we can. If not during the event, then in a video series we'll be releasing afterwards. The MME Council through this program would want to stimulate broad, informed, constructive debate and discussions around race relations as we welcome the views of all communities represented in Northern Ireland. I'd like to thank the Imagine Belfast team for making this possible. Thanks to Denise Wright, Mark Donoghue, Kaya Choma, and Liz Griffith for contributing to the film. Also to our panelists, Anna Lowe, Nisha Tandon, Mikhael, Leo Brown, Tunde Adeosun, and Ola Soberiaj. I'd also like to thank you for watching. And now over to our host, Maurice Macartney, who has been the key player putting this production together to begin our examination of race relations in Northern Ireland, past, present, and future.
Speak about my homeland without speaking Norse.
This body of water up behind me is Strangford Lough. The town on the far shore is Strangford Town. And this stretch of water between the two shores is, well, this is the Strongford, the Strangfjord that the Norse found when they came here a millennium and more ago to raid, to trade, to settle, to build homes and to raise families. And their legacy and the legacy of countless others lies all around us.
It's worth bearing this long history in mind as we think about race relations, broadly understood to include migration, ethnicity and related matters in Northern Ireland. In this series, we'll try to dig into these themes, tapping into the research and the living experience of a wide range of voices to think about the riches of intercultural exchange.
And I think there's a hunger for a lot of people who do a lot of outreach work with us all year round to come together for a little celebration just to showcase what they have learned. And I think that has been the real strength of it.
We'll look at the question of political representation.
The thing is, if you come from a different country to Northern Ireland and you're not a Christian and certainly you don't feel you belong to this place. And I think it's still the same in 2021.
We'll look at the risk of exclusion amid inclusion.
I However, in these kinds of power sharing agreements, what we have seen is that those who are expressly included will almost always lead to implicit or formal exclusion of people who aren't recognized by those groupings. So in Northern Ireland, that may include newcomers in my research, particularly looking at migrants and refugees and asylum seekers, but other groups as well.
We'll look at long-standing prejudices faced by, among others, the traveller community.
On the day that I started working, as mentioned, the race relations order came out. And it was the first time travellers were recognised anywhere here or anywhere in these islands, in Britain or on the island of Ireland. So we're the first part of anywhere in the world to be seen as an ethnic or racial group, which was a good starting point for me starting in a travel organisation. Before that, it was perfectly legal to racially discriminate against travellers, Chinese people, Indian, Pakistani and African Caribbean community. So it's perfectly legal for shop owners, pubs, restaurants, employers to say no travellers, no Chinese, no blacks.
We'll look at recent challenges raised by Brexit.
With Brexit, the challenge was that even though my environment or the people around me, my colleagues, my friend, we were all in the same boat, so to speak, that perhaps majority of my friends didn't vote to leave, and even some of my friends that did vote to leave didn't vote with me in mind. It wasn't like get Kaya out of the country, get the immigrants out of the country. It was very much, they bought into the economic side of things, or the possible advantages.
We'll look at policies that can help or sometimes hinder.
There are a whole range of things, I think, in terms of building good relations. It's important that people get to meet people. You can go out, deliver a lot of training, refugee awareness, migration awareness, talking about the situation. But I know that doesn't change hearts and minds. It maybe gives people a broad picture and addresses myths and misinformation. But what I think works is that in conjunction with face-to-face things. So we have Belfast Friendship Club and a spin-off from that is Small Worlds, where people will go out and represent their own communities, their own background, speak for themselves. And I think that's really important.
Over the years, I've had the privilege to work with a whole number of organisations to secure really positive changes to legislation and policy. And a good example of this is when as a whole sector we came together to lobby for a change in the legislation that would guarantee all refused asylum seekers a right to access healthcare.
We've mentioned intersectionality, so if we look at all, everybody who campaigns for kind of minority rights, if all the minorities come together, that they stop being minorities eventually. So I remember being at an event when it was literally like that. So there was somebody from BME communities and such community, and everybody was wanting their specialized kind of legislation for women's rights, for this rights, for that rights, and then at the very end somebody came in to say it's like a Bill of Rights would go along, for Northern Ireland would go a long way to to protecting all those, to addressing all those. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to unite those voices and work towards that one piece of legislation that would be helpful to all. I would lay foundations for all the others. So kind of politically speaking, and from a personal point of view, I also think that should be a priority for activists of all creeds.
My job is really to look at the laws, policies, processes that combine to cause migrant vulnerability. And then once we've identified the laws that do that, then we need to try and address those laws, get them changed, get the policies amended.
And we'll be tapping into the sheer talent, ingenuity and energy that could be a source of power for our whole society, if we could only realise it.
Yeah, so a bit of my background would be I've been brought up in Northern Ireland. I'm 20 years old. So I've been living in Northern Ireland for 17 years now. I've moved away for 3. Grew up, played for all the football youth systems, played for Northern Ireland up to under 19s. I have a lot of experience in football. I've done coaching when I was in England, got my coaching badges. Yeah, so I'd say I'm a pretty active member in the Northern Ireland community as a whole in terms of representation.
The whole idea about the African and Caribbean Chamber of Commerce, has to do with Africans and Caribbeans that are doing business in Northern Ireland or are looking at setting up their own business in Northern Ireland, whether it's a cleaning company, an accounting firm, all sorts. That means that there was confidence, in the environment for us to say, we can set up, these businesses in the community. Naturally, being by the kind of profession that I'm in, having my own practice and being a business advisor and consultant, tax advisor and accountant, all in one. I think it was just a natural thing for me to be nominated to head the organization.
So we do it together. So yeah, we have a business. We build custom PCs and we do repairs and things like that. We're starting to expand. We're going to start expanding out soon, and I think we're going to actually rebrand. I think there's work to be done. I think it's great at the minute. I think there's a lot of great organisations doing good work, especially in Northern Ireland. You've got Adeosun and people like that are sort of pushing it just to generate to government. They're doing big events. They're promoting their people. I think it's great.
Ultimately, it's your choice how you're going to approach it, and I choose to approach everything from my business to my identity to where I'm from with the approach of I know what I stand for, I know what I represent, I know what I can contribute, I know what I can offer, I know what my expertise is, and yes, I welcome growth, I welcome support. I want the government to be in a place where, even though I'm Polish, I still want the same opportunities, I still want the freedoms, I still want to be able to contribute to the society as I have been, for the last number of years.
The strong ford that gives this place its name, the tidal currents that flow through here every day, are being investigated by scientists as a potential source of clean power for the 21st century. That's the strong part. What about the ford? Well, looked at in one way, a ford is a place where two shores are separated, but looked at in another, it's a connecting place. If you're prepared to get on the boat, you can connect and combine with the other shore and be connected to everything that lies beyond. And it's in those connections and combinations that a whole other source of power and kind of power may lie.
Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined now by some of the people that you've just been watching and who've contributed to our series to discuss some of the themes raised. Before I ask them to introduce themselves, a couple of reminders. You can submit questions in the chat function, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can tonight. But of course, as was being mentioned earlier, we've got a series coming up as well.
So hopefully we'll get to the questions. If we don't get to them tonight, we'll get to them in the series. So please follow at MME Council on social media, or visit our website, mmecouncil.org, for more details on that. This program and the forthcoming series is linked to a research project led by Dr. Dina Zoe Belluigi from Queen's University, and also on the MME Council board, and supported by Queen's. So many thanks to them for that. So without further delay, let's turn to our panel and ask them to introduce themselves. Leo, let me start with you. Could you just tell us who you are and what you do a little bit?
Hi, my name is Leo. I'm a footballer. I played for Northern Ireland growing up, and Crusaders up in Belfast. I went over to Birmingham for 3 years to play professionally, but I came home due to injuries. Currently, I'm an accountant, and I own my own computer building business with me and my friend. We build custom PCs, and studying as well. I'm doing a degree part-time with Open University, studying accounting and business management. And I do a bit of skating and photography as well whenever I get a chance to.
You're a busy man.
Yeah.
and appearing on panel shows like this as well.
Yeah, I'm doing a few. I'm also an ambassador for the Rio Ferdinand Foundation in Belfast. So I only got appointed the other week. So hopefully be doing a few things like workshops and big events in Belfast to try and spread awareness and create sort of safe spaces and environments for specifically aimed at young people, but just to create these sort of safe spaces and environments for people to talk and express themselves.
That's extraordinary. I'll get some details off you, and we can put it up on our website as well.
Yeah.
Ola, let me turn to you. Tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself.
So, Ola Soberiaj, I'm Polish. That's I'm going to get that out of the way because people always ask me, where are you from? And when I say Macartney, then it follows another 20 questions of where are you really from? So, but I've been living in Northern Ireland for nearly 20 years now, which is kind of shocking when I think of it. I currently work on the EU settlement scheme project, so I've managed delivery of that for STEP and Stronger Together Network. And Stronger Together Network is a network of organizations and individuals working in the field of ethnicity, equality and diversity. And Nisha here was one of the founding members of Stronger Together Network. So we're all kind of all connected. And as a sort of side gig, I do well-being workshops, and I'm actually also a laughter yoga instructor every so often when I kind of pluck up the courage, because it's very much out of my comfort zone.
We've got a lot of very busy guests, and that's only the first two. Drew, let me turn to you. Please tell me your life is less busy.
Unfortunately, I can't meet you there, Maurice. But my name is Drew Mikhael, Lebanese, Northern Irish. Unfortunately, that doesn't, fortunately, doesn't end my experience of newcomer societies. My grandmother was an Armenian refugee to Lebanon, and then my father was a migrant to Northern Ireland. I am currently at Queen's University. I'm a research fellow. And I'm currently working on a project that is funded by the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust that looks at newcomer societies and how to create a more welcoming society in Northern Ireland, because my research experience and background is looking at those who are different or who come from different places arriving in post-conflict divided societies.
That's great. Thank you. We'll definitely be coming back to some of those themes this evening. Tunde, let's move to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Tunde Adeosun. I'm an accountant. I have my practice in East Belfast Enterprise, City East Business Center on Nathan's Road. I've been practicing now for the last 15 years. On the side, I'm also the chair of the African and Caribbean Chamber of Commerce, which is an organization that actually seeks to help African or Caribbean people in terms of signposting them to how they can start their business or how they can grow their business better. On the side, I like to DJ. So if you don't find me working, I might be somewhere DJing with some friends. So not too busy.
Sounds great. We should have got you to do some music tonight, actually. That might have been good.
Some beatboxing, yeah.
Oh, a kickboxer too. Oh my goodness. I feel underworked here. Don't tell my boss that. Anna, let's turn to you. Probably don't really need much of an introduction, but introduce yourself anyway.
Hello, I'm Anna Lowe. I came to live in Northern Ireland in 1974 when there was still the height of the Troubles, and with very few ethnic minority people here in Northern Ireland. I had a very varied career as a secretary, interpreter, community development worker, social worker, and eventually a politician in the Northern Ireland Assembly before I retired in 2016. So since retirement, I've become an amateur artist. I've joined a couple of voluntary organizations, one of which is Nisha's Arts Actor, and on the board, and not as a member of staff, and then an environmental organization called Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful. And I'm also a very keen walker and up mountains whenever the weather is good enough. So yeah, surely I'm busy too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good, excellent. And Nisha, you've already been mentioned, Art Sect has been mentioned. Perhaps just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll come to look at that in a bit more detail.
Right, thank you, Maurice. It's good to be here tonight. I'm Nisha Tandon, CEO of Art Sector and the Intercultural Arts Organization, and also the host of Belfast Mela. I have lived in this country I arrived here in 1977, just a little later than Anna, and it was also the height of Troubles, and I have seen everything here from no-go areas and other different environments, which we will probably mention later on. And I'm a very keen dancer and also a very, very keen gardener. These are my hobbies. But I am really passionate about the work I do, and that is to empower the minority ethnic communities in the artistic or in their cultural fields, which they come here and they're so lonely. So giving them, especially the women, giving them the platform to flourish. And that's what I really love doing that work. And latest work has been with the refugee and asylum seekers, which has been a great journey. And it still is an ongoing journey, a lot to learn. And as Ola mentioned, I used to be part of Stronger Together, a fantastic network, and which has done a lot of immense, beautiful work for the minority ethnic communities.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's just in a nutshell, this is just my background. And I also sit on a couple of boards, and that is Community Relations Council Board, and also Belfast Film Festival Board. And like Leo, I'm also the ambassador for Unlimited Social Enterprise Fund. And that is over in England, it is very, very big. In Scotland, it's very big, but it is very small here, but we are trying to make it big, make it growing. Yeah. So that's the background.
That sounds great. You both, you and Anna mentioned the 1970s in Northern Ireland. And of course, I remember that, grew up in that. And it seemed to me at the time, and that appearances can be deceptive, that it was pretty monocultural, or at least
it's seen as being divided into two and only two communities. And yet in 2019, the last time I was able to get to the Mela, you had tens of thousands of people enjoying culture and cuisine and crafts from dozens of countries from all around the world in different languages. How did you do it?
How did I do it?
How did you bring this rich intercultural experience to Belfast? Was it difficult? Were there problems? Were there barriers?
A lot of difficulties, Maurice. It wasn't, and it hasn't been an easy journey. And the most difficult part has been that I come from Black minority background, and being a woman, also people didn't think. People thought that, oh well, it's all right. She is only doing what everybody else is doing and will never get anywhere in this world or in this lovely land of Northern Ireland. But my determination and my passion for my work made me fight, 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 to show people that minority ethnic communities can deliver, want to deliver, and will deliver, and make us the part of your fabric. And we will be creating a very vibrant society here, which will be full of magic, learning, education, participation, co-designing, co-production, young, old, intercultural, intergenerational. Wow, wouldn't that be so lovely? And that has been the dream. And the dream has come true in some sense. We have created a beautiful shared space in center of Belfast Botanic Gardens, and it comes to life. We started with 500 people with a lot of challenges, and no departments, nobody to give us the money to flourish. And it's not all about money. It is about listening and hearing us plea to give us that platform. We created a true shared space, and you have seen that. You have experienced that, Maurice, yourself, and Anna, and maybe Ola, and I think Tunde was there a couple of years back. I don't know about you, Drew, but there has been a lot of people who gave us a lot of support, and it is that the minority ethnic communities, they took the ownership of it. And when I say the minority ethnic communities took the ownership, the Bulgarian, the Russian, the Polish, the Chinese, Indian, African, the Muslim communities, they all wanted to have their space in it to showcase the rich cultures they bring to Northern Ireland. They don't all live in Belfast. They live all over Northern Ireland, but they make sure that they participate and bring their culture to alive. Yes, there has been a lot of challenges, and not only the challenges from the policy side of things, because I use arts as a tool. But unfortunately, arts is the one platform which takes lot of understanding from many departments, and they don't go into the policy side of things at all. So I think it is very important that many departments, Department of Communities, Arts Council, the arm's length bodies, the Department of Economy, the whole executive should be seeing arts, creating those shared spaces, and creating a platform for lovely minority ethnic communities, how important it is to have equality, diversity, and inclusion embedded in everyday work which we deliver today. So that is just the nutshell which I would like to sort of give it to you. Yeah.
Excellent. I guess speaking of policy and the politicians, then maybe we turn to Anna to ask you, Anna, about your experience. You were at the time the only MLA from a minority ethnic community, and that remains the case today. I guess if you could give us a quick overview of how you got into politics, and are you surprised that nobody's followed in your footsteps just yet?
Well, it was very simple. Just the Alliance Party came and asked me to stand for South Belfast, and I thought about it and I just said, yeah, why not? But I had been a campaigner for a long time for ethnic minority equality and access to information services and the race relation order to be extended to Northern Ireland. So, and as a director of the Chinese Welfare Association, I think I had a lot of contacts with politicians, councillors. So politics wasn't new to me. And I thought, well, instead of always trying to push doors open to try to convince politicians, to do things for us, maybe it's about time I get into government if I had a chance to really just make changes within. In terms of the questions about why I'm not surprised there isn't anybody after me, politics to others coming from outside here in Northern Ireland could be quite complex. In other parts of the world, politics generally would be, based on left versus right, or liberals against conservatives. But in Northern Ireland, it is very often kind of tribal. And if you're coming from outside, I think that tribal politics, orange and green nature, put off a lot of people from wanting to participate, and they don't want to be labeled one side or the other. I mean, the assembly actually institutionalized sectarianism. As a politician joining the assembly, you have to self-identify as either a unionist or a nationalist or other. So I was always other. So I think that's sort of politics that's not really based on bread and butter issue, would just make people coming from outside who are not Christian, who don't want to see a united Ireland or to be part of the UK, it doesn't matter to them. It matters more to them about education for the children, housing for themselves, whether the business is going to survive. And so really, until I think we have more progressive politics, I think, you are not going to find many people wanting to get into politics, people from outside, to bring in their fresh ideas, their skills. But another part of it, I think, is because our political parties are so, in many ways, insular into their own corner. They're always watching what the other side is doing, and they really haven't made a lot of effort to try to engage with ethnic minority communities, to try to encourage them to come out to vote, to join parties, or stand, for elections. So there needs a lot of encouragement and hand holding for anyone who's a novice to want to become a politician. It's a big step to jump to make. So I mean, politicians, one can say, oh well, why there aren't any ethnic minority coming forward, but because we haven't gone out to explain to them and to try to bring them in, then you're not going to find them interested. I think another issue could be people are concerned about racism with certain political parties or politicians. And I've often been asked, well, have you ever, found any racism in the assembly? I mean, personally, I certainly haven't any overt racism in the assembly against me. But there is that fear of ethnic minority residents here, newcomers here, because they've heard some politicians making racist remarks, or some parties, some politicians making very sectarian remarks, and they are worried about that, and they're saying, well, I don't want to be a target, of racism by other politicians.
I can see Drew has been sort of nodding along to a lot of what you said here, because Drew, this is sort of your special field of study. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, and just to make the audience aware that Anna did say that she would hopefully be supporting my research, and I'm glad to see that my research has actually matched up and is characterized by what Anna has said, and I thank her for it. Not only for the validation, but also bringing light some very important issues, which is the lack of outreach by political parties in Northern Ireland is a significant problem that is rooted to the in my opinion, and I would say this, obviously this is what my research is about, to the central, ethnic, sectarian, confessional divide in Northern Ireland. These parties are used to longitudinally the politics of Northern Ireland, the big P political questions being centered around whether the state belongs to the UK or to the Republic of Ireland. For newcomers coming along, they're thrust into an awkward position of not actually having, technically, most of the time, a dog in that fight. So whenever you have political parties that have for a long time actually appealed to and built within their communities, where their biggest rivals have been their confessional or sectarian parties, where they're seeking to grab more constituents from the other, they don't know how to reach out to particular newcomers, because quite frankly, how do they decide where they stand on the big P political issues? And one thing that, if you look at, and a lot of the research that looks at newcomers in different societies, is that acculturation, assimilation, integration, there's lots of different terms and policies that have been bandied around for how to integrate newcomers. But the fact remains that it's a two-way process, right? Newcomers in Northern Ireland, and has already been briefly explained, have added tremendously to the social fauna and political fauna of Northern Ireland. We have them very wonderfully on this panel, but that has not been but that two-way interaction hasn't been forthcoming from the political side in the Northern Ireland's newcomers. And that is a direct result of our conflict that we have not come to terms with or grappled with. And certainly one of the aspects that's very, very important is that, and what I've heard from different Northern Irish politicians is that, well, they need to come forward and then speak to us. The reality is that you're living in a divided society, and as a newcomer, your positionality is particularly vulnerable. If you live in a community amongst one or other community, marking yourself out and becoming a party member of the DUP if you live in a mostly nationalist community is not an option for you. You live in a divided society, and actually putting yourself into a position where you might support a political party is to, in effect, become assimilated in all the negative ways from the eyes of the Northern Irish participants. That they're now voting for the DUP, or they're voting for the SDLP. They have now become a part of the Northern Irish conflict. So there's a social pressure in which that, understandably, I think that you come to a country or a province that has a long history of divide. You're not really willing to, and nor should you be willing to, risk your potential position where you live with your neighbors if your political opinion or political preference for a party doesn't match up with the local surrounding community. So in sum, I would agree with everything that Anna has said. And unfortunately, I think that one of the aspects that we see that we really need to come to terms with is that when it comes to, and Nisha said it at the start, the addition that newcomers can have in Northern Ireland. The fact that we can create that Northern Ireland isn't just a place for two different ethnic peoples who see the future in two linear ways, right? That there has to be a culture of recognition all throughout Northern Ireland, all throughout Northern Irish society, political and social. That culture of recognition has been enshrined politically in the Good Friday Agreement, but it only included 2 different communities to be recognized, right? And we even see that there's a difficulty in recognizing the major features of those 2 communities, because they often stops. For the 3 years that we had a suspended a Stormont over one of the key issues of the Irish Language Act. Okay, so they're having difficulty even creating recognition patterns for each other. So where do newcomers fit into that if they don't even recognize each other through the statutes that were created with outside help? So when it comes to integration and it comes to actually being allowed and creating a space in which people can flourish from all different communities and create a stellar constellation of different ethnic groups and racial groups and all the rest of it, we have to be able, Northern Ireland, and we all have a role to play in this, has to be able to move to a culture of recognition of all societies, all different peoples, and recognize their different cultural signifiers that belong in the province that aren't only related to orange and green, that there is a lot more colors that can be integrated and can actually contribute positively. So I'll stop there.
I think everyone has said about the contribution that people, newcomers and so on can make. So let's turn to Tunde and ask him about exactly one of those contributions, about how you set up the African Caribbean Chamber of Commerce in Northern Ireland. And you might want to unmute yourself at this point, by the way.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, Fajay.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Maurice. Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, based on all what the panelists have said, it's my experience also. Although I came here about 12 years ago to Northern Ireland. If I was honest with you, I didn't have any idea about what Northern Ireland was about. You know, all I saw was in pictures, greeneries, looked beautiful, until I came here and I realized it was a divided society. And but of course I'm here, so what do I do? And you know, I worked a bit here before deciding to set up my practice. I looked at the environment, and something just said to me that it was conducive enough. Having said that, I did have some fears, if I was honest, but you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I was going to give it a try, you know. So I resigned from my workplace and decided to set up my practice. Of course, I started from home, from my kitchen table. And from then on, you know, got an office and you know, rest is history. But in my journey, in the course of having my own practice and with the, you know, stereotype that goes with African people about, you know, fraud and whatever, of course, I wasn't left behind on that also. You know, all this came in. I've had issues where people came to my office, knocked on my door, saw me and turned back, you know. And of course, that felt bad, but notwithstanding, you do always think it's just a small minority of them. Well, fast forward, practice is established, and then I started thinking that, well, there is a lot of truth about the fact that it is a divided society. You know, you're either this side or you're that side. But because I don't think we Black Africans or Caribbeans take any side anyway, and they see that we are not actually the same color with them. So I looked at us as a neutral people that, well, if anything we are doing has to do with economic growth, you know, economic empowerment about ourselves, I don't think that should be a problem for anybody, you know. And then we got a group of, you know, people that have also ventured into starting their own little company here, whether it's a cleaning company, you know, a barber shop, you know, food and groceries and stuff like that. That look, we cannot sit on the fence and decide that, look, you know, things are not going to change in this economy. Let's start seeing what we ourselves can actually impute into the economy. Maybe this might start changing, you know, changing the narratives about how they feel about us. Because what I found out is that, you know, the local community always thought that every, you know, African that was here was a refugee or you know, an asylum seeker, whereby there are quite a bit
that came here to study. There are some that came with different kind of visas for work, the doctors, nurses, quite a bit. But the stereotype, that they have with them is the fact that, they're hungry, they're dirty, they have diseases, and they've all just come here to pitch on them and stuff like that. And that wasn't a good feeling. And we thought, look, let's start seeing how we can contribute into the economy so that they start seeing a different side of us, to see us as someone actually contributing to the economy and not actually taking anything from there. So when we set up, the setup was based on, we had, Adeosun then, which was more or less like the umbrella body for all the Black and Caribbean organizations. Especially Alfred Abolari was the one that came with the concept of, let's have a business angle to what we are doing. We know we have culture, arts, quite a bit of different things, human rights. Let's have the business part, and we went for the meeting. I would say, okay, let's set up this and see how we can start to encourage, Black Africans and Caribbeans to see how whatever they want to do, that look, the help is there, the support is there. You can get to it. All you need to do is just, go get it. Now, the cultural insensitivity of the support network we have here, like the other panelists have said, has always been just binary. Is it good for the, for this part of this particular sector or that particular sector? There was nothing about, people coming in. Yeah. I've sat in meetings whereby the discussion has been, people have come from East Belfast, some have come from West Belfast to talk about what is their issue. But it was all about Northern Ireland or Belfast, but it was just about the two issues. And at a point, I had to ask, so where do I come in? You invited me here, where do I come in? And they're like, oh, okay, sorry. So what's your
but you've come in now, you've got a thriving organization, and maybe we'll get to talk about that.
So that's just the whole issue that, I strongly believe that in as much as we're on the round table discussing how Northern Ireland can move forward, that is when we all have a chance to make sure that we can contribute positively into the economy, and make a greater, better impact overall.
And indeed, there's another member of the panel here who has done exactly that. And let's have a quick chat with him now. Actually, Leo, do you tell us a little bit about how did you go about starting up your business? And then maybe, again, if you faced any of those sort of barriers that you've just been hearing about.
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a gamer, playing games my whole life. I played competitively, especially when I was in England, because I had a lot of injuries. And you're in a very isolated space, so all I really had was my room and my Xbox, whatever I was playing with. So I got really into it. It was really competitive, and then I moved. My friend played PC, taught me how to build them and stuff, and I noticed that a lot of these computers people were buying were just terrible. So I just thought, within my sort of small community in Bangor, I just started a wee business and actually build people good computers at fair prices, because people don't really know much about them. So they'll go to Curry's or go to whoever and they'll say, oh, I want a computer to work, and they're like, right, $3,000, and they're like, oh, okay, well, that's how much a computer costs. So that's sort of how we that's how we sort of just came about doing it. And we quickly found that especially now with COVID and how the last years went, people are just looking to buy computers and gaming ones. I've got people buying gaming computers for their 7-year-old kids and things like that now. It's madness. So I haven't so far, since probably because we're so reasonably small and new, haven't come across any issues with anyone. Everyone, especially because we're in a small community, and the people we deal with, word gets about, it's all word of mouth. So everyone we deal with generally, really nice, really polite.
Was it the same in the football?
Oh no, football is a completely different story now. Yeah, football is rough. Growing up, especially growing up here, I grew up in the early 2000. I was born in 2000, so 2000, 2010. I was going to primary school. I found that I had a major identity sort of crisis. Didn't really know who I was, because I had no one except for my mom and my brothers, and then I had a cousin, auntie and uncle. That was it. That was all of my family that was black at all. I didn't have any sort of connection to my roots. I went to school surrounded by white people completely. And yeah, so I went through an identity crisis when I was young. And then as you sort of get through those stages of your childhood, I moved into football and loved it, played it for a long time. I got every other game you get some sort of racial abuse, but I think the thing about football was because it's so competitive. I don't necessarily think it's because the person themselves is racist. I think it's just it's just to get that sort of competitive edge. It's just you see it whenever, like in the UFC, whenever they do the wee standoff, they'll say anything that comes to their head to try and give them that sort of competitive advantage over their teammate. When you're in someone's head, it's sort of game over. But I think that was really hard at such a young age.
Yeah.
Dealing with that, and then even the parents on the sideline would be doing it, and obviously my dad being white, they didn't know that he was my dad, so he had to sort of sit through all of it, and it was hard getting over it. But you have to sort of understand that these people are probably just uneducated, or they're in really sort of small. A lot of them are from these sort of small, tight-knitted communities that don't really get to experience other cultures and other ethnicities. They're very not even necessarily closed-minded, but they haven't seen anything else but from where they're from. There's a lot of people born in the Shankill, even here in Kilcully and stuff. There's a lot of people born there and they don't leave. They never go on holiday. They never experience these cultures. So I have to sort of take that into consideration, as hard as it is. But you have to, at the end of the day, you have to sort of just point it out, tell them you can't say that.
Yeah.
There's not much else I can do. I'm 12 years old, but
it's a very generous take, and you're commendable for the strength that you've shown and the resilience and the fact that you're thriving. That's admirable. And I suppose, speaking of some of those sort of more overt sort of racism and so forth, and just a second, I'm going to turn to Ola. I can see that the time is ticking past here, so I'm just going to say now, if you want to put a question in the chat function, we'll try to get to it tonight. We might not. If we don't, we'll try to cover it in the following series. Let me turn to Ola and maybe pick up on something that Leah was saying about that, that kind of almost overt racism that he was talking about, that you saw probably in the early parts of this century, this millennium, as it were, when people from Eastern Europe started to move in. Certainly for me, there seemed to be xenophobia and racial incident forth. Does that ring true of your experience? How did you set about overcoming it?
It does and it doesn't, because it's I've noticed a change there, because on a sort of individual personal level, when I arrived in like 2001, I was literally the Polish girl in Macartney, and I worked in a nursery school, and everybody, I knew everybody, and I was just kind of like a little curiosity that everybody wanted to meet and look after, and was very, very helpful to. So later on, when I had other job interviews, there were parents that offered to give me lifts, this, that, and the other, and it was really quite nice. That a small community that seemed very, very caring. And then suddenly in 2004 and 5, when bigger groups of people started arriving, the attitudes have changed. There's suddenly, I've noticed the hostility, and it was never against me. It was just, it was always, it's not you, it's, it's them. I was like, but them is me, I'm them. There we come from the same place, from the same background, and so I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what what it is that changed, and I thought very much so, like Leo, it's because it's bigger groups of people who maybe look slightly different and sound slightly different, and if they speak in a language you don't understand, it seems louder than what it actually is, and it might seem harsher. So a lot of it was to do with education. So that's I've started educating people around me, from families and neighbors and whatnot, and then it grew into a career, so to speak. But it really, the more people arrived, the worse it got, and it was never personal. It just seemed to be this kind of group mentality. It was perceived one group against another, even though when two individuals from those groups actually interacted, that didn't seem to be a problem. So again, that was something that I started to wanting to promote, to actually give people to meet and interact, and get together on our very local little scale. We did little events where maybe not necessarily strictly cultural, and to showcase cultural things, but just where people from ethnic minorities were service providers. They may have been the face painter, the balloon modeler, the musician, so not necessarily those kind of typically ethnic things, but just people in the community who could showcase their talents, to really show maybe the indigenous local communities that they're really the same, that they all had kids that needed to like to be entertained in a vastly the same way. They all had school problems, they all had work problems there, and that sort of mainstreaming ethnic minorities and ethnicity into the local has become something that I've become quite passionate and involved in. And it's because I've noticed that yes, there's sort of equality and diversity has become a tokenistic tick box exercise for many, and it's and there is a box where I was like, anything ethnic, if you want anything, any ethnic or diversity related programs or activities, there's that's where it goes. It's just there in the corner. So that's for Minority Ethnic Development Fund, or there is some sort of diversity pocket here or there, but really the mainstream still stays vastly for the local communities, and is vastly concerned with the race relations or good relations between the green and the orange. So I'm very much about adding to those colors and mixing them all up by sort of mainstreaming the ethnic bit in the culture or in the advice sector or in the politics. And it's when Anna said about politicians approaching ethnic minorities, I've had a couple of parties approaching me at the time of election, when they sort of realized there's a few votes missing, and perhaps having a bit of a following on social media I might help. So but it's the same. I don't really feel like any of the parties. I don't really identify with any of the parties because of the green and orange issue, because it's not my issue. I can understand the ideology and the passions behind it, but I don't identify with it. And in terms of the policies, I haven't, and many of ethnic minorities and newcomers or people I know also haven't found anybody they can identify with. My sister, on the other hand, has. So she's found the Green Party, and she joined the Green Party, and she was immediately offered the diversity inclusion officer part in it, and we despaired, because this is again this kind of tick box exercise. And she's an accountant and she's a treasurer for a couple of organizations, and she put herself up for that position, but that wasn't even considered. So we had a little laugh and thought, right, we'll just you kind of start from the bottom and see where that goes. But so that's really where I am.
Did you find that these things were exacerbated around the time of the Brexit debate? I was going to say, it's a whole big referendum and all the rest of it. So did Brexit exacerbate
very
things?
much so, because very much so, because it's sort of by 2016, the migration and sort of all those groups of people have become something that Northern Ireland was starting to get used to and embrace. And like Mela was growing, and you could see all the businesses and shops and people and more kind of mixed families. And then suddenly with the Brexit vote, I think well, I certainly felt it was personal, and I heard Kaya in the video saying, nobody voted against, to vote Kaya out, and I'm sure nobody voted to get me out. Nevertheless, to me, it felt personal, and to very many people also, because we suddenly realized that around half the population here is for Brexit, and Brexit was really advertised as and sold as this kind of anti-immigration and get our identity back and basically get them out if possible, which was never going to happen, because that's for all sorts of reasons. The people who are already here. So nobody was that was never part of the plan. Nevertheless, to us Eastern Europeans or Europeans in Northern Ireland, it felt quite personal, and it made us feel, I think, not belong here and like not wanted here, and questioning whether we made the right choice to actually to make it our home.
I wonder if anybody else in the panel, not from Eastern Europe or from a European background, felt there were also knock-on effects for them. I mean, Nisha, for example, did you notice anything in terms of the Indian community? Did they feel a little hostile atmosphere around the Brexit vote? Or?
Yes, very much so, because as you would know, that the Indian, Chinese, Jewish and African communities were the first settlers in Northern Ireland. And yes, whenever this Brexit came, we also felt that we are part of the hospitality industry. We are part of the NHS and the health. We are part of education. We are part of the entire fabric of running Northern Ireland, and agriculture as well. And why is it that our counterparts, such as Europeans coming here who have contributed so much, are to be sent home and they're not wanted? So the Indian community was definitely not in favor of Brexit. At least I wasn't, but anyway, that's a long story. But and many of the hospitality, even the students who were coming from Indian origin to Queen's sort of started, or Queen's or UU started to think twice whether they want to come here or they don't want to come here. And also many of the NHS nurses, they went back, they went to better places, where they seen better opportunities and better pay and better everything. They left this country because they didn't know what was going to happen to them. Yeah.
I see, Drew, you were nodding about the university aspect of that. Do you have any insight into the situation at Queen's or indeed at UU?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that I don't want to belabor the point, and definitely want to get round to the other panelists. I just think that whenever it comes back to a situation in which you have, when I've been in classes, and those of us that have worked at Queen's understand that when 20-year-olds are meeting for the first time from the opposite end of the community at the university level, it really is very unwelcoming to most, to those outside of those traditions, to be able to step in and have a place, especially when you're growing up. And I'm not outwardly Arab looking particularly, and certainly whenever people are growing up, when my name was heard, then I was marked out as different. And it was interesting to understand that actually I could play insider versus outsider quite often. And then to be able to see the difference in how you're treated whenever you're assumed an outsider, because then it comes back to, well, exactly, are you a Catholic or Protestant Greek Orthodox person, rather than just like understanding individuals on their own merits. And what Ola said, and I despair to the point that it's understanding people on their own merits and their own contributions. Oh, let's put the newcomer in, or let's put the person who's different in as the diversity person, because that makes sense, rather than actually what she's qualified to do, which is accounting. And even amongst well-meaning, and especially in actual fact amongst the well-meaning, the non-sectarian or the non-ethnic thinking, we have to be able to like move into a position of actually beyond tokenistic equality, and that begins at the small levels, that begins in university, that begins in societal clubs, that begins on the football pitch, and it ends in all these places as well. Because if we're not practicing, if we're sort of tokenistically handing out positions of equality and diversity based on the fact that that's exoticizing people's experience in Northern Ireland. It's actually pushing them further away from engaging in the deep societal debates. So I just wanted to say that, really.
I can see there's a few questions are arriving in the comment box here. One of them is, from your experience, what is the one thing white people, those from the two tribes in Northern Ireland, could do to get organised and build momentum to end racism? I don't know which of you wants to, maybe Anna, you are unmuted there. Do you have something to say?
Yep, you can hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. I think certainly I was very impressed by the Black Lives Matter, when I see lots of white people standing side by side with the black neighbors or black friends or another black protester on the streets and in different places. I think that is the picture we want to see. That is how we can challenge white people in the wider society. It's not black people who brings racism. It is the attitudes of white people, local people, against newcomers, against anybody who's different, and they see it as a threat. But if they see white neighbors and the white school friends, standing beside a black person, I think that's a very positive image. I think the more we see that mixing of people working together, playing together, to see that it's not an issue, that it is just normal. Northern Ireland is now like part of the UK multi-ethnic society. We need to see more of, let's say, like presenters on television, more politicians. And actually, I thought it was very good in recent times with the COVID, BBC and others brought in a lot of consultants to talk about their experiences or whatever their specialty. So often they're black people. I think that sort of image is so important, that like, Tuna was saying, that you're not just seen as a refugee. A black person is always, looked at as a refugee coming to sponge the welfare state. But it is something like that. That's so powerful on television. A consultant talking about, about an illness that we are also scared about. And I think that's sort of normalizing it and looking at people as individuals, rather than grouping them as, oh, these are Polish, Chinese. You're seeing them as individuals making their contributions. I think that personalize, humanize people rather than demonize them or putting them in the category.
Nisha, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Anna. And yes, Black Lives Matters has brought a lot of, has opened a lot of eyes and a lot of chapters. But this has been going on for so long, and it had to break the silence somewhere. But I still feel I still feel that integrated education is the key to everything. If you educate your child from day one to say that you are going to be you're playing with Chinese, Indian, African, Polish, Romanian, it doesn't really matter. Let's integrate them and let's bring them all together and make them learn from each other. I think that is the way forward, and that's how it has to be in education and then in our home environment as well, where the changes have to take place. Till we change those hearts and minds and the policies and the lot of the green and orange agendas, I don't think so this Northern Ireland way of living and Northern Ireland is going to be successful, no matter how many Black Lives Matters come, how many people of color will come and live in this country. It is not going to change until we change our own perceptions, and perceptions will only change if we educate.
Leo, when we were talking before, you said you had been hoping to get to the Black Lives Matter. Of course, there was the COVID thing, so you weren't able to go, but presumably you found it inspiring, that movement.
Yeah, well, obviously, being back myself and experiencing it a lot, it was great to see. But I've all my close friends, my best friends, are all white, and I think like to answer that question, I think it's just, I think it's Nisha is the Bella, isn't it? I went to it in 2019, and the one thing you'll always find with all my white friends is when you let them in, you let them experience your culture. My best friend Paul, since like 11, we bring him in. He has to adjust to the way we live, so he has to come in. He has to greet mum and dad with hugs. He has to take his shoes off and go upstairs. He has to try and eat all our food. Every time they try and eat your food, it's always like, oh, this tastes amazing. Not, do you know what I mean? They have to. I think just the biggest thing is just experiencing cultures. I think you have to really promote, like going to I went with all my friends. We went to the it's the Bella. It's the Bella, isn't it?
Mela, M, Leo, yeah.
Yeah, and all of them absolutely loved it. Try the foods, do the crafts, do everything. And I think it's just getting people out to those sort of events is all it needs. I think it's really all it needs to be done. Like, because no matter where you go to, once they experience something like that, it automatically triggers and opens things in their minds. That's from my experience. That's been the main thing that's really sort of like changed the way like my friends view other people now as well.
Yeah. Tunde, do you agree with that, or have you seen that sort of interaction change people's minds?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree very much with what Nisha said in terms of education, integration, the children, and also, I would if it was possible for people like Nisha to be given more support to do more cultural things, in all levels, I think that would go a long way also, because if you just one here, one there, not everybody can be seen together at all times. So it needs to be quite a lot of it. The more we expose in Northern Irish local people to different cultures, and activities, like Leo was saying, based on his own friend on that small level, if we could multiply that, in 100-folds, then of course it will be a big issue. When you start having schools that are not integrated, one is Catholic, one is Protestant, then where do we fall in? It's going to be hard, until those policies, like Nisha said also, are changed and we could look at something more inclusive for everybody. It will still keep being this way.
So one thing I'll say, Maurice, is just on that, it's also down to us as well. It's down to me to bring my friend into my environment and to teach him my customs. It's not like a one-way thing. It's two ways. It's down to me to bring him in, and it's up to him to ultimately accept and go along with it. Whenever we dance, he dances with us. Whenever he eats with us, it's a two-way thing. So I think it's also down, even though there's a small minority of us here, it's down just to reach out and try and bring them in as well.
Am I muted? No, I'm not. I thought I was muted. That's another generous thought, I think. Yes, thank you again for that. I'm just there's another question in here, if I can just.
But maybe just if I can add something. Yeah. I think, Nisha's right, education is important, but education in schools is not enough. I think we have strong legislation now. So, we have race relation order and, the government, and we need to use more of that. And also another thing is there needs to be more training in organizations and government departments about discrimination, so that people feel protected, feel that if they have a grievance that they can go and talk to the boss and there would be support for them. So there needs to be more support for ethnic minorities to come forward as well if they feel being discriminated against. So we need to look at policies, legislation, and all that to tackle racism in Northern Ireland. There is overt racism, and that's violence, and the police need to do more as well. I mean, ethnic minority communities quite rightly feel that they don't have a lot of confidence in the police when they see so little successful prosecution for racism. Or when they go and report incidents and they are not being followed up in a proper way or in time, then people then don't want to report again. So I think all those legal side or those training would be very important as well to try to tackle racism.
We're certainly moving into policy recommendations here. I think that's probably good territory to try to move to for the last 10 minutes or something, I suppose. Ola, that's something you've worked on. Do you want to give us some idea?
Well, not sure. Just I think and it sums up what everybody else said. The education would be a huge and integrated education, building in anti-racism and sort of the unconscious bias and diversity awareness and cultural competence into the curricula and into education and altogether. That would be great. My mind was completely blown when it came to choosing schools for my children, and it turned out that 5 years earlier I would only have the maintained or controlled choice. So it was quite lucky that that integrated education was so new, because it's from an outsider point of view, it seems like a no-brainer. Like, well, how do you expect people to get on at the age of 20 when they're being separated from the age of 3 into 2 different tribes, and then you try to get them to come together at the age of 25, and then if you throw a newcomer in between those 2 groups, how is it supposed to work all right? So I think moving towards lobbying for integrated education and both for teachers and for children, that would be a huge recommendation. And obviously implementing the racial equality strategy has been at the heart of Stronger Together network, and bringing the sector and people together to push on that. We're halfway through the racial equality strategy period of the 2015 to 2021, and unfortunately not even an action plan has been formed as yet. So we have the diversity champions within the departments, and that's great. That's a step forward. And then within the departments there have been some training, but again, those those poor diversity champions, they are anything ethnic or foreign, go to a diversity champion, and that's not their role to be a scapegoat. And I feel very often they are, so because they're supposed to champion diversity and not just kind of deal with all the problems themselves. And now in the fallout from Brexit and the protection of rights of everybody, and protection of non-diminution of rights of EU citizens and their families, that is a huge area of legislation and policy that within Stronger Together network and in general we should be looking at, because suddenly with Brexit and with the end of the transition period, obviously the UK government advertised it as everybody being treated equally and all talent attracted to the UK, but it really is that everybody who's not UK, British or Irish is in fact a third country national. So there hasn't been a levelling up, there has been a levelling down, and making it more difficult for people to have a standard living. And funnily enough, Brexit and all the EU settlement scheme and all that legislation that even created inequalities or reinforced inequalities between people who are British or British Northern Irish British or Irish British. There are certain little caveats in the legislation that make it possible for ones to bring their families from somewhere else and impossible for others. So that's something that is really that is a huge inequality, and then anybody who's passionate about the Good Friday Agreement would pick up on it quite easily. But the immigration legislation is actually not really obliged to follow equality, so that's another battle. So these are really the things that would come to mind in terms of policy work.
That's fantastic. There are a lot of complexities, of course, that we'll have to work through. Again, just to remind people, there's going to be a follow-up podcast series. I can see a few more questions coming in here, but I think basically what we'll do is we'll save those and try to address them through the podcast series, if you don't mind, because I can see the clock is ticking, and I would be delighted if we could maybe go back around the group here while we've got you on screen, while we've got you captive, as it were, and maybe just take one very quick, if I were to make you Prime Minister or Taoiseach or whatever, or First Minister for that matter, for the day, what's the one recommendation you would want to see? Maybe avoiding the integrated education that you've talked about before and that sort of thing. Tunde, what is your one recommendation, do you think?
I would suggest, because a lot of times you get people that write these policies to be white, writing about racism, what they've not experienced before. I would say in that department that they should get people from different cultures, to actually work with people that write these policies so that they can get it right. Yeah. That's what I would recommend.
Get representatives of the community to go and sit down at a desk.
Because I don't think that exists. I just think a couple of people somewhere writing policies, and they don't know how I feel when someone discriminates about me, because it's not happened to them before. You need to get the real people that's happened to contribute so that they can make meaningful representation in whatever their policy.
Drew, I'm going to keep this short now. So.
Yeah, I'll behave myself. You asked me if I'm being Prime Minister, I'd fire Priti Patel first.
No, absolutely.
She needs, and avoiding the personal and going into the political. The fact is that particularly imperiling refugees and asylum seekers is symptomatic of a wider issue of that we have had and we have experienced, not recently, in the last more than the last decade, to newcomers and those coming into the country. The fact is that that it's being made as bait for red tops to try and create this division between people, and that isn't strength. This idea of creating a constellation of identity around who belongs here and who doesn't is a weakness of a democratic state, not a strength. What a democratic state, a truly democratic state, as as Tunde was saying, about real meaningful presentation and presence throughout throughout all aspects of institutions in a country, means that we need to focus on associational relationships, which means that do we agree on commonalities together, not on culture, not on what is intrinsic to what we were born with, but what can we come together and actually develop ourselves? New technology, new art, new food, because Northern Irish food is not very good, and we need more integration from wider communities to actually have something that is really uniquely ours, based on coming together as individuals rather than intrinsic. And that's why a Bill of Rights is particularly important, to try and shift the conversation in Northern Ireland beyond ethnic sort of understanding. And yeah, I just wanted to get, and I think that the recent law by Home Secretary is something that is deeply problematic, and that we should all see ourselves like standing up against, regardless of background.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Leo, do you have a vision of the future?
Is there any limitations on what I can do? I don't know. I think I'd probably go like along the mellow route and have like something like that every couple of months.
Right.
So I'd like, and just constantly change the theme, you know, Indian, Chinese, Japanese, you know, African, you know, create, like just constantly have those sort of events for people to continually sort of mix and experience different cultures, you know, and I think that's probably something the route I'd sort of go on, I think.
Very good. Interesting. Interesting choice. Ola, do you want to add anything to what you've said?
Yes, well, Drew kind of stole the Bill of Rights from me, so the Bill of Rights for Northern Ireland would be my first priority, but on a slightly different thing, a universal basic income would be also something that I think I would introduce if I could. Mm-hmm.
Interesting thought. Nisha, you've had support from Leo there.
I really love Leo. I think he is just so great. Bringing Mela in everyday's life. Oh, wow. It's going to be a hard challenge. And Anna will know all about that as well. My first motto will be, and I really actually agree with Tunde as well, what he has said, and definitely agree with you, Drew, about Priti Patel. And I love you, Ola, about Bills of Rights. Yes, definitely. For me, it will be, don't divide and rule. Let's rule together and make this place a very vibrant, exotic experience for everybody living here. And let's welcome our new communities with open arms.
I was going to turn to Anna Lowe for the political soundbite to finish with, but I think we've probably just heard one. But Anna, let's hear your one too.
Yeah, well, changing attitudes takes a long time. Mm-hmm. And I think in order to change attitude, very often it's the use of the law and policies, public policies, to make people rethink and reflect and be fearful of breaking the law. So I think it's not wishful thinking for me to say one wish I have would be for government, not wish, one action I call for would be for government, all the government departments, including First and Deputy First Minister, to redouble their effort in implementing the racial equality strategy, mm-hmm. including strengthening all the laws of anti-racism. Mm-hmm. That's hate crimes, all those other issues that we need to really redouble our effort to make this place a safer place for people and a more inclusive place for people in Northern Ireland of all different nationalities.
That's fantastic. I think you're just squeaking under the line. We're just being beaten by the clock. So let me just take this opportunity One, to thank the organisers of the fantastic festival for putting this on, to thank Queen's University and the team, especially Lynn Gold, who's been behind the scenes helping us out here. And thanks also to our panel, to Ola, to Leo, Drew, Tunde, Anna and Nisha. I'm sure everyone has had a fantastic, enlightening experience this evening. And thank you to everyone who came along and listened. We'll try to get to your questions in the series. Follow us on @MME Council and we'll pass on some more information. So thank you for watching and good night.